everybody. You're tuned into L.U.V radio. We're delighted to have Yolanda in the studio with us today.
Hi.
We're going to be discussing her book, I Am Yolanda, A Journey of Hope. Um, Yolanda, not only an author, she's also...
I'm a teacher. I'm a public speaker as well, and I do mentoring.
We're very, very, very happy to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we're going to start off. I'm going to read the review that I wrote, and then we can turn it into the interview from there. So my review went something like, in this book, I Am Yolanda, A Journey of Hope, I Am Yolanda, author, writes about a specific experience in her life which inspires hope, strength, and determination. I like the way how Yolanda touches on culture and explains her thought process throughout the book. With each paragraph, I was thrown into an array of emotions which forced me to continue reading in order to learn the outcome. Reading this book, I felt a sense of pride, learning of Yolanda, of how Yolanda seemed to have used her every ounce of strength to survive. Congratulations, Yolanda, and thank you for sharing this captivating tale of love for your boys, how passionate you are about their upbringing, and your determination to succeed. This book encourages self-belief and inspires you to trust the process. I really, really did like that.
Wow.
I really did like the book. And the reason why I used the culture aspect first and foremost is because I picked up on that in most of the chapters.
Okay.
So, for example, the first chapter, not the first chapter, I'm not going to specify on chapters because I don't remember each chapter.
Yeah.
But there was a part where you was moving the schools, and you gave an example of the fact that they didn't do Black History Month in that new school.
Yeah.
But I was reading it, and you mentioned that you did do a Black History Month 1 year. Was that in the same school?
It was the same school, and what had happened is when it had come to my attention and my realization that there was nothing taking place, there were no events, there was nothing for the children to honor the month.
Yeah.
And that bothered me. And there were a couple of other parents at the school who were not white but still not black, but they still felt the same way. And then it turned out when we started talking about it, it was the fact that actually the only thing that the school was honouring was Christmas or Easter.
So no cultural diversity.
Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
was going to say bonfire night, but that's not the one I meant. Halloween.
Yeah.
To me, and especially things like Halloween, because I'm not going to be disrespectful to religion,
Right.
but that's not necessary. That's not the stuff I really want my children to partake in. That's my personal preference. But my point was that everywhere, or most places in the UK, cannot escape Black History Month. So why is it this school was skipping it?
Exactly.
So it was after raising that with the school that they were like, oh, apologetic, and we never thought about this and that, and utter nonsense. But I said, okay, well, I'd like to come in and do something for the children, and it was agreed that I would come in and I would read a book, and I chose Anansi the Spider-Man because it was Anansi the Spider-Man were books that when we were children I loved reading, and I loved it for the accent.
Yes.
Because you didn't read other books here in England at school that spoke with that accent.
Exactly.
But when you had an Anansi book, there was all of this stuff that you could relate to because this is how your families speak.
Right.
So I took that in, telling myself that these children will probably have that same experience. This is a whole new world to them. But they need to know that world exists outside of England and the UK.
Right.
So I did that year, and to be fair, even though the school had agreed for me to do that, they very carefully asked me not to mention it to anyone else. And it wasn't don't mention it, meaning don't tell anyone you've come in to do this. It was just, can you not make a big fuss?
They didn't want it to spread. They didn't want other cultures coming in and having to do things for other cultures.
Exactly.
I picked that up in the book. You did say that in the book.
And to be fair, at the time at which the head teacher said that to me, for me, that was what I thought. I thought to myself, so you'll quite happily skip everything because it means nothing to you? I didn't like that.
And this was the new school?
And it stayed with me. This was the school they were moving from.
But
this was one of the factors that it had stayed with me.
Yeah.
It bothered me at the time. Yeah. And although they had allowed me to go in and read the story, it wasn't enough.
No.
It was just a small thing. You know when somebody hands you, you're starving to death and they eat the bread and give you the crust?
Yeah, I understand that.
It was that. That's what I thought.
But in the irony of the fact that this was one of a factor, because I know that commute was also a factor.
Mhm.
The irony that you brought them from this school because of that, there was a factor of that Black History Month not being displayed, and we've gone into this new school,
Mhm.
and from what I read, I don't think there was much black children in that school. There was a few, but not.
Yeah,
It was
there were
getting
more because there were more children in the school.
there. Yeah.
But it wasn't, it wasn't predominantly black.
No, and then, then the headmaster coming to you about Kwame's attitude
Yeah,
in
the
class.
head teacher.
Yeah,
Yeah.
coming to you about Kwame's attitude in class, and this whole fight. I mean, personally, reading the book, you can let me know how it came across from your view. But for me, I felt like it was an opportunity for them. I felt like it was an opportunity for them to get funding,
Mhm.
and I felt even in the beginning. To be fair, in the beginning, when Kwame's attitude came up,
Yeah.
I had a feeling he was missing his old school or missing his old friends. He was just finding it hard to adjust.
Yeah.
I did, but I didn't want to make an assumption. I wanted to continue reading.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I didn't. That initial conversation you had with Kwame, asking him why are you not doing the work, and then he eventually said he missed the school. That never come up to a bit later down into the chapters.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't mentioned again until the end. And that was a bit of a why haven't the teachers mentioned to Kwame
Interesting.
this? I will also want to ask you the question, why didn't you bring that up soon? Maybe it did come up, it just didn't come out in the book.
It didn't come out in the book. It was something I mentioned when I was constantly spoken to about my son's social and emotional well-being. He's upset, he doesn't want to do the work, and then he complains, and to me, I didn't hear or feel a social emotional need. I saw it as, number one, there was more within our lives before that point.
Yeah.
So I took into consideration all of that. I took into consideration what we had experienced before this point, and then the fact that the boys didn't want to leave the school.
Right.
But I had to move them.
Yeah.
For me, that detachment, this is something that's synonymous with young children, and we know this. It can be synonymous in adults, but the fact it was carefully skirted around.
Yes.
Nobody really wanted to address that as an option.
Exactly.
It just,
exactly.
Yet still, if you read some of the books now, for people studying in university, studying social work, and so on and so forth, they talk about these detachments. They talk about how these things affect a young person or a child's mental health, moving from schools, parents separating, all of those kind of factors.
Right.
None of those factors appeared to come into conversation when we talked about my sons.
This is what I was thinking, and I'm glad you touched on the single parent issue as well, because regardless of going into your personal life, I commend you for taking responsibility.
Thank you.
That you it was just like one sentence. It was your responsibility. You wrote it was your choice. You was putting too much pressure on the other person.
Yeah.
And it was your choice. And I really, really commend you for taking hold and knowing yourself.
Mhm.
And being able to do that. And like I said, I feel that because you were a single parent as well, that's why the school even was pushing even more.
Yeah. I definitely,
It was difficult.
wholeheartedly. I don't have all the answers. I don't know it all. I'm observant, and I pay attention, and I listen. I listen to an awful lot, and I listen to unspoken words as well. So, for me, looking at the way I was treated and looking at the comparisons, how other children or other parents, with other children were treated at the school, it was very different to me. And I saw behaviours that really would I'm going to speak for myself, that made me raise my eyebrows.
Listen, Terry, I know what you're talking, yeah? Terry, when you mentioned Terry in the book, I'm thinking, why did they put them together for one? Why are they not addressing his behaviour? Why is it that Kwame is the new person? Obviously, Terry's been there a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that we don't know. We can't assume that they didn't go to Terry's parents.
Yeah.
But Terry's parents weren't on the coach.
And look at it like this. Terry's parents weren't receiving those calls that I was receiving. And I do think that a lot of the behaviours, a lot of the way I was treated, it was something that was born out of a stereotype.
Yeah.
where I come from, my mum says, "Duppy no to frighten."
Exactly that.
I believe in that. And I believe that sometimes you make an assumption, you see someone and they look weak because they don't have the things that you count as making them whole.
Exactly.
And I believe as a single woman with these 2 young children, and I was relatively young, I looked maybe like an easy target. If it was the playground, perhaps I would look like someone you could bully.
Exactly. And then I know, I mean, all right, we're going to mention the tears because
Yeah.
I'm not even going to lie, I have that too. Enough people think I'm crying and they don't know that's the time they need to step away.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
so the temper. So I've imagined you as a person who you'll kick off or you'll say what you need to say when you need to say.
Yeah.
But because you are like that, when you're speaking to those figures within the school, you withdrew from doing that straight away. You was constantly analysing whether or not being yourself was what you needed to do at that time.
Yeah, definitely. I had to look at what the assumption of me and my family, my sons, was already, and I had to make sure that that's not what I was displaying. Because I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of saying, they're all the same, or you don't know me. You don't know me. And everything I did, I had to constructively think about what I wanted to achieve.
From that.
You know, and my mum is the ultimate warrior. My mum is the ultimate soldier.
And you displayed that in the book. And we were going to touch on that as well because, I mean, you don't mention her much, but the bits that you do mention, I was like, That's exact, because, I mean, I grew up with my mum being so strong as well. So reading it, I just knew, there was a point when you was calling your mother to let her know the outcome of one of the hearings. And you was in your emotions and your mum went quiet on the phone.
She still does that. She still does that. Let's just be clear. She does that.
When at the part in the book when you wrote "Hello, you there?" and your mum was like, "I'm there," I couldn't start. I laughed out loud. I couldn't start laughing. I was like, "She's waiting for her to finish."
She is. She's waiting for me to have my rant so she can speak to me sensibly.
On a sensible level, which is fair enough. And you're her daughter. You'll be her child no matter what happens in this life. So she'll always deal with you in that way. And I'm really, like I said, regarding the way that you represent your mother, your aunts, and even the way you represent your family in the book. I really, really commend you for the way that you displayed, and you've given thanks, you've given gratitude without exposing their personal business.
I wouldn't do that, and thank you for noticing. But writing the book had to be me standing in my truth, and I had to be very mindful that even though there were people in my life who were instrumental at that time, I had to make sure they played their part in the book as instrumental without us looking at them as individuals, individually at their lives, because they didn't ask to be for that.
Right, exactly.
They didn't write those books. They haven't decided to share that part of themselves.
Exactly.
But I own wanting to share this personal part of myself. And so I wrote the book in that way.
I thought you did it really well, really, really well. I mean, like, I understand that you have a younger brother, and I got that, but still, there was no in-depth, and so we was able to focus on the circumstance in hand, which was how you was being dealt with by the school and by the authorities regarding your sons. And it wasn't really your sons, it was more Kwame. Why they focused on Kwame is also a question. You know what, I'm gonna put down my questions because I've got a lot about the book. All right, so Kwame and Cassius. Kwame's the elder one. And we're gonna give an overview to say, all right, so you changed schools, and while they were in the school, there was an attention on Kwame's attitude, and it brought about them contacting social services. And this is where the bulk of the book, where we really get deep into how things happened. We'll go into that, but my surprise at at the first hearing, which I can imagine.
I know what you're gonna say.
How tough.
I know what you're gonna say.
How tough. My surprise that they would say that you treat your sons differently. Like, I was like, well, what I probably said I probably can't say on air. But
I understand.
I was like, that was all right.
It was a low blow.
Yeah, it was rude.
It was a low
It was rude. I think regardless of their professionalism, regardless of the reason why you're there, to even assume that a parent treats two children differently. At the end of the day, me personally, I know that my bigger sister gets treated differently than I do.
Mm-hmm.
I get treated differently to how my little sister gets treated.
Yeah.
Regarding
Yeah.
how we're disciplined because of our ages at the time, and whatever. However, my mum loves us all equally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even to display that, I think they was trying to push forth an assumption that you don't love Kwame as much as you love Cassius.
Yeah. They definitely did. They definitely were trying to do that.
Yeah, so I wanted to get your feelings on that subject because we're going to move to to other people that put their 2p piece
So
into
let
it.
me take a deep breath. That made me really angry. It made me really, really angry. There were different points in my journey that would have really riled me. That was one of them. And it wasn't just because they thought that, because them thinking that, they thought a lot of things about me. It's not really that big a deal, but it was when you sowed that seed in my son's head. When you sow that seed in my son's head and you make my son, who's a child, start calculating 2 and 2 and getting 10.
Yeah.
Because you don't know us. You don't know anything about us. And there's something that you said that is really, really important, and I want to impress upon it. And the fact is that we do treat our children differently. We treat them differently according to who they are in character.
Exactly.
I have 3 sons and a stepson. Let's call it 4. And every one of them's so different. So in dealing with them, there are some things you just have to deal with them different.
Exactly.
It's what works.
Exactly.
Do you get what I mean? Some of them, some of my sons might be more sensitive than the other. Some of them might be, less talkative. And so that means that you have to prize information or a conversation out of them. That's life.
Exactly.
Some of them need more hugs than the others. Some of them need more reassurance.
Exactly.
It's all of those things. And I'm very conscious of that. And like I said, the insinuation that I loved or treated them, differently was outrageous, and it was really out of order.
The hurt was when Kwame gave you the cup.
Yeah.
You were delighted. I mean, I could read
still got
from
that
it.
cup.
I
Still have that cup. I'm a hoarder anyway, but when your kids buy you something cute, there's certain things you keep. I kept that cup.
And the fact is, I mean, even though it's after the fact, and you're writing the book now after the fact, you can now express in writing how you felt about being given the cup.
Yeah.
But I could feel that you loved it. I could feel that you loved the fact that he used his initiative of his own money to spend it on you, and the fact that they're going to bring that particular subject up as an example of mistreatment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I was wondering, and I'm thinking Sandra was black, right? Sandra is
She
black.
was black.
Because
Sorry, let me fix my eyes. She was black.
Because I'm like...
And let's be clear, that doesn't mean anything except that, are we not one?
This is what I'm getting at. And my point wasn't to define race or to establish or to divide anybody.
Yeah.
But I know that you had a respect for her, so I wanted to know if she was black, just from my personal reasons.
And I think that's why I would have, and I did take it as personal as I did, because, like I said, are we not one?
Exactly.
So everything else that was done to me by other professionals, who were most of them not black, I understood there was a motive. I understood that it could be racially motivated. I understood all of those things. But when you, as not even my sister, this woman was someone who I would look at the way I would look at my mum and my auntie. So you'd get that different level of respect as well.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? It hurt. It hurt my feelings that you looked at us, and I don't know, for the little 2 seconds that you saw, these people contacted you, and then you had this conversation just like that.
That's
you
exactly
sold your own sister out, your daughter, your whatever. You just
nice.
Like that. It was really, and it felt like at the time everybody was doing that. Everybody was picking and picking and picking. So when Sandra came and it wasn't Sandra, it was Dolores. Her name was Dolores.
It was Dolores.
Yeah, Sandra worked at the school.
Yeah, because I was thinking Sandra was the after school club.
That's right. This is Dolores.
So Dolores did what?
Dolores is the play centre lady that you're talking about.
The play centre, okay, because I thought Sandra, I've got my things mixed up, obviously.
Yeah.
So, because I thought Sandra was the after school club person.
That is right.
Oh, and Dolores, the play center.
They went to in the holidays.
This is it. All right, good.
And she is the one with the cup. You've got all the details right.
Yeah, no,
It was
but I
just
got the person
character.
wrong because I've
Yeah.
mixed up the play school with the after school club.
Oh, right.
That's
okay.
what I've done.
Yeah.
All right, good. So this was Dolores. I bet. Sorry, Sandra.
Yeah.
So.
Sandra was amazing.
No,
Let's be
because
clear.
I know you respect
Love
you
Sandra.
respect her.
Love
Yeah, you
Sandra.
respect her. So
To
that's
this
why
day.
that's what was worrying. So Dolores was the play center.
Yeah.
Okay, so she was only there for a couple of, so she didn't even have she didn't really have anything to go by. Like she's only with them for a few hours during
honestly,
summer holidays.
It was, I don't know what to say. It was, her interaction with us was not enough that she should feel the need to make an assumption like that. But I also believe that if someone says to you, have you noticed that so and so always runs to the bathroom after eating? I think she's bulimic. All of a sudden, you start paying attention to the fact she always runs to the bathroom. You don't tell yourself that she's got a weak bladder. You tell yourself she's bulimic.
Right.
People believe what they want to believe, and so that becomes the conversation you have with other people. Did you know Yolanda was bulimic? Do you know what I mean? So I think it's very much, it was very much that kind of thing. However, as a professional myself, I don't do things like that.
No.
I don't do things like that, and I was shocked that she would do that to me. But it's life lessons.
Yeah, of course it
because
is.
you don't know, and sometimes we shouldn't assume in the same way that we don't assume that we can trust every childcare worker with our children.
Exactly that.
Just because they got a certificate, a qualification. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
People are still human first.
Exactly. They're
So.
still human, and so that was my surprise. And I wanted to know away from the book because you kind of just mentioned that she says that, and it's like I can feel that you're angry, and then I don't hear like did you go to Dolores and speak to her about it or anything like that?
No. You see, once you twist the knife in my back, I don't need to speak to you because we already know where we stand. And when you can make assumptions about me without speaking to me as well, from small little things like that, I'm afraid to talk to you.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what you're going to make
what
out
your
I
intentions
said.
are. Yeah.
So I'm better off staying away from you.
Yeah, and keeping clear and
yeah,
making sure.
and that's what I did.
And do you know what? I mean, I wanted to touch on this at the end, but it's like burning. I want to say it so bad. I was reaching. I weren't sure what your motives were. I weren't sure what your intentions were, the way you were going about it.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna lie. A couple of times I was reading the book, and it was like this is it. It's like, and you've gone into your emotional state, and I nearly rolled my eyes like, oh my gosh, what's she gonna do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wasn't sure what your intentions were, but let me tell you something. When I read the page of the final hearing, when the mentors accompanied you to the hearing, and my vision, you could specify who was on at the table, and my vision of that table turning from white to black. Like I never imagined that's what you were doing, and you had your entire support unit. In the end, whereas in the beginning, exactly, and you say that, and where in the beginning you were there by yourself.
I was.
And you was defending yourself, because I was like, I'm not even gonna lie, like I'm an honest person. I speak what my thoughts, and I was thinking the night before you were gonna sit down and take notes, and you came with you said, I've got my notepad and my pen. I'm like, yeah, watch her now, big liar. Yes. And when you retaliated, or when you responded to the teacher saying about why you flicked Kwame in his mouth on the coach. I was like, no, not yet. Because when you flicked him in the lips, I knew that was going to come up.
Yeah.
I just knew it. I was like, I was on the tube reading it in the morning, and I literally went, and I was like, oh my God, I know it's going to come up.
Yeah.
So when you went in there and you responded in the manner that you did, I myself, by the way, have been in the workplace, been like felt like cornered because of my emotion.
Yeah.
So I know how difficult it is to get your passion across without people looking at you as if you've got an emotional problem.
Yeah. Or you're the angry black
woman. Or you're the angry black woman.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, because that's exactly how I specify it in my real life.
Yeah.
Right? So I know how you was feeling, and I know why you responded the way you did. the outcome wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be,
Okay.
because I'm not familiar with the laws on the registers and the,
Yeah.
so I weren't sure, but I don't think the outcome was as bad as it could have been, because I felt like worst case scenario, they can say you're gonna have to remove the children from the home.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, if that happens, I'm throwing down this book right now. Like, you know what I mean? Because they can't do that. Like, not for the fact that the child decided that he didn't want to do his work. And before we move on, since I've mentioned that, I do want to point out that when he did go to the next school that he went to, the third school, which was the final school, I believe.
Final school.
It happened again where Kwame refused to do work, or he was mentioning
but they fixed that.
And listen, you're coming too soon, man. They never only fixed it. What the teacher did was he addressed Kwame himself. I don't want to say what they said in the book because I want them to read the book.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
But he addressed Kwame himself and said, all right, I saw you work. All right, this is how we're going to do it. And
That's
Kwame
right.
did the work.
That's
That's what we need to mention.
That's right.
Kwame did the work.
He did.
Because he
did the
can
work.
do the work. He was just testing the adults. Because I take him as an intelligent individual.
He's very, very intelligent. And if you give him an inch, he will take a yard. I mean, if you check the levels, he is a normal child.
Exactly.
He will do whatever you allow. Is that not why they have parents? Is that not why parents are here to set boundaries?
Exactly.
You know, but without boundaries, a child will do what they like.
Exactly.
And why should we adults expect them to do differently?
Exactly. And this is what's bringing me to the fact of, once he dealt with Kwame and you came to pick him up, and you had that. What was your thought? That initial, Yolanda, can I see you in the classroom, please? when
you get so tired of hearing the same thing. I used to dread going to the school at the last school. Like, I really used to dread it. It just was always something, and the phone was always ringing. It was just always something, and I got a job.
Yeah.
You know, what do you want me to say? I'm at work.
Yeah.
But when he asked to speak to me, I did feel at first that little thing in my heart. My heart used to do this thing of like sink in, and then I would get really anxious inside.
Right.
But it was like seconds. It lasted seconds.
Exactly. So that means the happiness I want to bring from this is, how did you feel when you heard how he responded?
I wanted to hug and kiss him. But here's another thing: when you're a single woman with kids, everybody thinks you want their husband. So I can't hug and kiss the teacher at school, and I'm a hugger. I am a serial hugger. So all I could do was really shake his hand and say thank you. But I shook it like I need you to feel this.
I need you to know.
This is a real thank you. Like, feel my gratitude
for listening, for exercising what you've been taught.
Yeah.
Because that was
for
another
dealing
point.
with him.
Yeah.
Like one of your children.
As a teacher as well.
Yeah.
To be fair, because like you say in the book, why didn't the other? Why didn't the other teachers pick up on it? Where was their? My question about it is, what was their procedure on discipline? That was my thing, because I didn't see any discipline.
And remember, we said in the beginning about dealing with every child different because they are different.
Exactly.
So this universal way that teachers think you can just deal with everybody is not applicable.
Exactly.
You need to deal with that child as an individual and stop expecting them to be like everybody else.
Exactly.
What works with one doesn't necessarily work with the other, and what was going on at the school with Kwame in particular, it wasn't working for Kwame.
Exactly.
If something isn't working, what do? We move on. We try something different.
Exactly. You try to
Nobody should be failing the same way over and over and over again. But as far as I'm concerned, that's what was happening at school.
Yeah.
You were getting it wrong by trying this way, and the following day you did the same thing. Why? Because my son didn't matter. He didn't matter enough for you to adapt your way of doing things. He didn't matter enough for you to differentiate. He just didn't matter enough, but he mattered to me.
Exactly.
And that's why I fought.
Exactly. But in a way, I feel that, and I know, and I felt like, because you cannot. I don't see how you're going to have a class of, let's say, 20-odd children.
Mm-hmm.
One child, or maybe in this case, I'm not sure if Terry was also playing up, whether he sat down or not. But
Terry had no behaviour. I can say that.
Exactly.
Terry had no behaviour. Like, we're talking, I call it EastEnders behaviour. This behaviour I only see on the TV.
Right.
Because in my family we don't have that.
Right. And they were placed together. And from my experience in class, from being in school. If a child and two children are clowning in class, I call it clowning for use of a better term, they're separated.
Obviously.
So the fact that
and not allowed to sit next to each other again.
And exactly. So the fact that they didn't separate Terry and Kwame, the fact that they even allow them to be together on the coach, I felt like they was adding fuel to this behavior, and they wasn't addressing the behavior.
My child didn't matter.
Exactly. But he mattered when they wanted funding.
He didn't matter. The funding mattered.
The funding mattered.
And you've got to think that
that's right.
It's not really that he mattered when they needed funding. In them getting that funding, it was almost taking me down a peg too.
Yeah.
And I think that was a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
I do. Because, I mean, me personally, seeing you and meeting you like face to face, I thought your character, your aura, everything, you just seem like you know what you want, and you're a strong individual.
Yeah.
and you carry yourself well, and I really, like I said, I respect you. I don't know you that well. I've not known you for very long, but I do respect what I know of you.
Thank you.
And I feel like there is that. I can only use my work experience as my catalyst, but I'm a person that I like to carry myself well.
Yeah.
And throughout my career in one particular company, somebody mentioned to me, oh, where are you going tonight? I thought you was going to a party. You look like a partier. I said, why do you think that? Oh, because you always dress with the big jewelry and you know, it really, exactly. And you know, I did a wrong thing. I fed into it.
Oh, okay.
I fed into it, and this is why my experience is good, because I now know what happens when you feed into it.
Yeah.
The fact that I was able to draw myself out of it is a good thing.
Yeah.
But listen, if anybody ever tries to tell you how to dress or assume that you're something that you're not because of your appearance, do not feed into it. You be yourself no matter what. Yeah, because what I did, I was like, well, maybe that's why everybody's, you know, maybe that's why they're picking on me and stuff. And I slowly started taking off my earrings, going to work slowly.
I've been here though. I have been here.
And it was my grandmother. It was my grandma, because I realized when I started taking off that jewelry and when I stopped being who I was and trying to blend in with the mediocre or be just
Somebody
blend in,
else.
everything that was coming at me, I was unable to bounce it off.
There you go.
I was unable to be myself and bounce it off. Normally, you couldn't. I strike anything like that. And it was getting worse and worse and worse till it was actually affecting my health.
Yeah.
And my grandma don't play. And I call my grandma. My grandma is the person I call when I need advice and stuff. And I just
the best thing in the world.
Yeah, she really is. She really is. And I remember saying to her, Grandma, do you think I go to the party because I wear my jewelry and stuff? So I started taking off the big heel back and the jewelry, and my grandma went mad. She said, no, why should you? She said, why should you?
Sorry.
It's okay. She said, why should you? And I woke up in that moment, and I was like, all right, I'm getting back to be who I am.
That's right.
And
that's right.
And I felt better and I moved on. So in that instance, when you say they were, I mean, I'm going to use the word attack, because they wouldn't have no problem using that if we was talking to them in a way. Let's be clear. So I felt like they were ambushing. I called it ambushing once.
I mean, it almost
like
is ambushing. It was every corner, somebody was saying something derogatory, and you know, the fact that everybody masked it as trying to help.
Yeah.
But then helping someone isn't sitting down and unpicking away at them.
Yeah.
That's not help. If you're helping somebody, you may well identify what could be worked on, what needs work, what can be improved. But then you also help them with those strategies, or support them to do that. Right. If you're just going to sit here and tell me your hair needs fixing, your clothes don't fit, you need to lose some weight, and all you're doing is having a good old bash.
Exactly.
Do you get what I mean? And I felt like that's what it was. And strategies, like I said, you offer me mentoring from your mentoring service. The mentoring isn't really mentoring, it's mentoring with someone who you choose.
Right. So and
we don't do things your way. These are my children.
Like you said before, if the school doesn't identify, if Kwame didn't matter to the school, how can you trust that Kwame is going to matter to a mentor that the school
A stranger
recommends.
with my children.
Exactly.
No way.
Exactly.
And if, when I say a stranger with my children, let's be clear. Yes, my children did have mentors.
Yeah.
Okay. These were mentors I chose, that I felt comfortable to be around my children.
Mm-hmm.
You do not decide on who is going to be around my children, especially in such maybe an individual one-to-one kind of setting. No. I don't play that game.
Right.
I don't care who you are. I don't play that game. These are my sons.
Yeah, I felt that. I was like, I just didn't like the story. And my thing is that reading this, I have one child, and she's not at school age yet, so
Okay.
I haven't experienced the school thing yet. So this is a good little
Yeah.
insight into the world of school. But I feel like if this could happen to you,
Mm-hmm.
how many other people, how many other single mothers, or even single parents, or how many other people have the school system condemned like this?
So many others, and this was my main intention for writing the book, because I do so much sharing on social media and in my talking and everything else, that I know that people think that I'm just comfortable opening myself up. I'm not necessarily comfortable opening myself up. I just see the power in sharing, and so I do it for that reason. My intention for the book was the fact that I'm just very certain that I'm not the first nor the last.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, other people need to hear the story so that we can come together and deal with this.
Exactly.
This is not a one problem thing. You are not isolated. We can do this together. And sometimes, especially when you're afraid or you're anxious, you're too afraid to fight.
Yeah.
You think you can't fight.
Right.
You look
hit
at
the
them
nail on
like
the head.
Goliath,
Yeah.
and you think that you cannot defeat them because you are David, but you can.
But sometimes as well, you know that you can defeat them, but you think to yourself, what is the consequence of defeating them?
But again, it's fair.
Yeah, it's fair.
Do you know what I mean? It's fair.
Yeah.
And I think once you know what? My biggest fear was always losing my sons. So everything else was secondary. It was like, I'm not going down without a fight.
Right.
And did I tell you? You better kill me first.
Exactly.
Do you get what I mean? And my mother's child. This is how I saw it. So yes, as we know, the teary moments were,
But we need to
all the
mention,
time.
We need to mention you were emotional in the beginning,
Oh
and
my
which is
gosh.
rightfully so.
I
I
was
think
emotional really throughout, but it became bearable.
no, but when you say emotional throughout, come on, there's emotion where you're hurt.
Yeah.
You're actually hurt.
Yeah.
And there's emotion where you're angry and you're going to show them that you're angry with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I respected you for that, because you went home most of the time. You would listen to what they would say. You wouldn't really reply.
No.
You would go home and have your moments at home.
That's right.
The day that you came to the school, they called you into the office and the 2 police officers were there.
Mm-hmm.
That day, I was like, all right. When you gave it to them in the end, I was like, she never said enough, but at least she said what she had to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
And you finally told Trench Bull, what we're gonna call her. We finally told
That's
her.
her name, Trench Bull.
That we finally told her, come out of my face. And if you come in my face again, you know what time it is, because I've given you enough.
Yeah.
You know, and to my delight, that the 2 officers didn't turn up to the next hearing after that.
No, why would they?
Exactly.
When you do something and it doesn't work, you can't do the same thing again, isn't it?
Exactly.
And you haven't got anything new, because why would you have anything new?
Exactly.
I'm not someone who's known to you. You don't know anything about me. I've not done anything that I need to come to your attention.
Exactly.
So the reality is, when you come and you just try to taint my character, I take offense to that.
Exactly.
And if you come back with that, it's going to be a different conversation. Do you know what I mean? Because I see what you're doing. But the greatest thing about that whole everything that they had to say was that they made it very clear to me that it wasn't my imagination, and there was a motive. There was an ulterior motive, and they showed me that. And the best thing is when people show you who they are.
Exactly. And you was able to see that. You was able to, excuse me, I was just making sure I wasn't going to miss any questions.
That's okay.
You was able to show that through the book, that that you saw who these people were, and you were analyzing, you were studying them.
Yeah.
You were studying them from the beginning. Although obviously it's a book, we need to give depth. We need to give body into the book. So we had to we stretched it out a bit, but point blank, you studied them in the beginning and you got them.
Yeah.
And that's what we're gonna highlight as well. The fact that you went through this. It was turmoil. It was emotional.
Yeah.
But you managed to continue, and through all of that, you still managed to get to at least pass that first year. What you was talking about in the book.
Yeah.
If you put I know she passed. She ain't opening the envelope, but I know she, I just want to see the results, you know.
I honestly didn't know. I didn't expect that.
Yeah,
I
I
really
get that.
didn't
I get
expect
that
that,
because
but,
of your mindset as well. You're wondering whether or not things have accumulated.
Yeah.
But you know what? Like I said, I can't say the word respect enough.
Thank you.
Bringing having to bring your child into uni at the same time, and I can imagine how that felt in the beginning, but the fact that the teacher actually commended you for doing so, it wasn't something that he recommended, but he commended you for doing it, and the fact that you went through all of that and was still able to come out well done. I mean, congratulations, well done, big
Thank
up
you.
yourself, everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because now that we can conclude, because we know that Kwame's doing well.
Yep.
We know that obviously from you moved him out of that second school, went into that third school, everything was fine.
That's right.
And I can imagine that they've done well. From the
amazing.
From the acknowledgements and the last of the book, I know that now you've had another child and you're married now, and things are going so well.
Yeah.
So congratulations again, and I want to keep that in mind, to say that you wrote this book because you came out of it.
Yeah.
You went through that turmoil, but you came out of it. And my question to you is, how would you advise anybody else who's going through this at the moment, or something similar at the moment?
I think one of the things that I'm constantly saying when I talk about my experience with the book is that we need to remember where we come from. It takes a village to raise a child. So can we start going out there and talking to the rest of the village and getting that support? When we sit down in isolation, as I have done myself, but when we sit down in isolation and we're going through things in silence, it's so easy to convince ourselves that we're alone. No one else is going through this. No one else has ever been through this without me. And if they have, I bet they were doing better than me. But when you talk to people and you realize someone else is going through or has gone through what you're going through, what does it do? It gives you strength. So see, my book, it's giving strength.
It does, and you see me highlight that.
Yeah, and I don't think that, and I know I say this in the book, I don't think that I don't have exponential strength. You know, I'm not Thor. I'm a Marvel fan, sorry. I'm not Thor, I'm not Iron Man.
I'm not Black Lightning, but yeah. But yeah,
do you know what I mean? Do you know? But I'm just Yolanda.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
But who I am is someone who refuses to give up. And that's what really serves me as well.
Yeah.
I refuse to give up. And so the fact is that everyone can do what I've done. And if you need help to do that, that's okay. Because like I said, it takes a village. And we mustn't be ashamed. I was so ashamed. I felt like such a crappy mum. These people convinced me. I thought I was a crappy mum. And even though I kept trying and I kept trying and I kept trying, I did think I was a crappy mum. And when you're on your own,
you're questioning yourself.
Yeah, and I openly did that in the book, and it was painful. It was painful. Like, you know, I've put things in that book that you only know if you read that book.
Exactly.
So the people closest to me didn't know it till they read the book. You know, I literally opened my heart on those pages, but it was necessary. It was necessary so that we can have the conversations that we need to have, and so that we can see what is really going on. Just a bit of insight and strength. The book signifies strength for me. I cannot stress enough how much fight I want other parents to have in these situations, because I know how tough it is. I know how easy it is to give up. I felt like giving up so many different times. I felt like life wasn't worth living, and only because I refused to leave my sons behind, that's not an option for me. But that's how bad I felt at different points.
And how did your family feel, since you brought it up? How did your family respond to the book? Oops,
sorry.
I've been trying to avoid that thing. How did your family respond to the book?
Everyone was really, really supportive. especially the fact that I isolated myself so much to get there. It's like all I ever did was write. You know, I wasn't really going anywhere, and I wasn't really speaking to anyone as such. And then whenever the kids would see me, I was locked in. Do you get what I mean? They were really, really supportive, and they really believed in me, which is like, I think that's one of the most gracious things. Is people really believing in you without knowing what you're going to put on those pages.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know, my husband never read a word of the book,
Really?
and not a word of the book, and my biggest fan. My biggest fan.
You can see
And I
it.
tease him and I say, like, this, when you're married to me, that book could be about anything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm like? that book could be about anything.
Yeah.
He didn't have that fear. He just believed in me. He just knew.
That's amazing.
You know, and everybody, even like my little brother, you know, I know you mentioned him earlier on in the conversation, that he's in the book, but there's not much about him. That surprises people, because if you know my brother, you know that we are like this.
Yeah, exactly.
We are like
I
that.
can imagine. You
However,
did say
yeah.
that you always wanted a sibling. So to have to be old enough to help care for a baby sibling, I can imagine how delighted and
We
how
are
bonded
very, very
you are.
close.
Yeah.
But there's nothing really in the book that tells you about us.
No. But
Does that make sense?
I didn't expect it, because
Yeah.
the reason why I didn't expect it is, reading the book, I realized quite early on that you focused on just this event.
Yeah.
And I'm a person, I like to pick up on vibes. I like to study people a little bit, and I could feel that you were purposefully leaving out everybody else's personal life.
That's right.
And every other story that you can see that there are stories that connect to that story, but you was able to focus the book, and I felt that I really enjoyed that. I wasn't expecting it when I picked up the book when I purchased the book. I wasn't expecting that, but I liked it. I liked it because we focused on one particular scenario, one particular area in your life, and that was it. We didn't branch off into all these other things, confusing and wanting to like cliffhanger this and don't know where this is going. You focused
it's not a story book, if
exactly,
that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
exactly. You focused on just that particular segment, and you was able to. I feel like your family should be proud of you. I can imagine. I can imagine somebody in my family doing something successful, and how I feel when I see them grow and when I see them do things. So
that evolution is amazing.
and no, hold on, let me show them again. It's a really good book, you know, and a flimsy something, you know. It's a really good book. Underneath for check it out.
All 300 and something pages.
Listen, and I couldn't put the book down. Let me tell you that now. Like, because normally when I'm reading or I read a story, it takes me a while to not even to get into it. I might get into it, but you know, other things and
Life
I'm busy.
happens,
Not with this. Literally, I read it in, I don't even know, just a couple of weeks.
Wow.
Like literally, like I
Wow.
couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what happened next. You know, so in saying that as well, while we're on the subject of writing, let's give some encouragement to other people who want to write out there. Like the motivation. I'm really big on motivation and self-motivation, because I'm quite self-reliant.
Yeah.
And I know that not everybody is. So how was it, especially like you said, you isolated yourself to focus on the book. So how would you advise or encourage other people to find that motivation if they need it?
I think everyone's going to find their own rhythm. But for me, hibernation was what was necessary. It was necessary because I was embarking on something that was really, really, to be fair, is really personal to me. So even though I sit here talking to you about it, it's really, really personal to me. And I knew that revisiting this segment of my life was going to cause me to feel lots of different emotions. And I'm emotional anyway. So I need to separate myself so that I can deal with me. And that was part of the preservation of me, so I could actually write the book, if that makes sense. So, you know, I wasn't speaking on my phone, like, it was rare. I was having conversations, but I wasn't having many. Not that I spend that much time on the phone, to be fair, but I wasn't having many conversations. I wasn't going anywhere. And my day might start at 5 in the morning, and I'm just writing. And I could write in between that time before I wake my son up to get him ready for school.
Okay.
That's the way I was doing things.
Yeah, man. Because I'm sorry to cut. I don't mean to jump in, but
it's fine. Go.
Like when you mentioned that, I remember how the book opens and you staring at the ceiling. That you see that chapter.
You know what? Some things never change. I still stare at the ceiling. I still stare at the ceiling. I still watch GMTV in the mornings. Some things are just. That's what I do.
The way you was able to put that in writing.
Yeah.
Like it was so like to me, like that's the part that nobody knows.
Yeah.
That's like I ain't telling nobody that. Yeah. I said that. So for you to really, and you really, I'm trying to find the words, but you really display that really well. You just the way that you write it, I was able to envision it. I was able. I mean, I like just from reading that book, I feel like I know what your room looked like.
Well, this is the thing. When you write something, you want people to be there with you.
Yeah.
The best books that I have ever read have made me feel so much part of the story, and for me, that's what I wanted people to feel. I wanted people to experience that feeling I get when I read a book.
Yeah.
There's no point in just reading empty words. I wanted people to be there with me, so I gave you I gave you everything I could so that you were part of this. I didn't, however, know that I did it to the extent that people have explained and described to me in the aftermath. But at the time, definitely I wanted people to feel it, because if they don't feel those words, people don't get, they don't get a call to action. Their eyes don't spring open.
Yeah.
So you got to make people feel things.
Okay.
And the only way I could do that was to be as transparent as I was in how I felt.
Yeah. And like I say, I really commend you for the way the parts of you that you do expose in the book. I commend you for the way that you write it.
Thank you.
Which brings me on to the publishing, like, because I know that you mentioned there was a friend or somebody that you knew who said to you, you need to put that into a book.
Yeah.
And they gave you a title, but you don't really.
That was the social worker.
Oh, that was the social worker.
That was actually one of our social workers. Absolutely amazing. I wish I could have written her name in the book.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't do that to her.
Of course.
But she was a social worker. She was our social worker, and she said to me, Yolanda, you need to write a book about this experience because it would help other women. And I just never, and as well, we'd had such negative experiences with all of the other services that to finally have a human, because that's what I'm going to say it, but someone who is not dealing with just what's on paper, they're dealing with you, the individual.
Yeah.
To finally have that level of humanity, it meant everything to me. And even her suggesting that, it just showed me the levels.
Exactly.
And to be fair, it might have been one of the first times I actually considered that what I was going through or had been through was something that could be shared. You know? And it was too soon then, perhaps, but nothing before its time.
No, nothing before
nothing
its time.
before its time.
And like I said, I do want to express the fact that when it was all over, you felt, and you felt. I don't want to give away the way you say it, because I really think you write it really, you execute that really well. The way that you described the feeling of everything going back to normal. Let's put it like that for them to read the book and see how you describe it for yourself.
Yeah.
I was really taken back by that, and I felt happy for you.
Thank
that
you.
you was able to now be free, so
Thank
to speak.
you.
So just in the end, because how long have we been going now? That's not bad. A 1 hour interview. That's not too bad.
Good.
Publishing. How did you go about researching how to publish a book, and how was copyright, proofreading? How did that all go?
So I self-published. Firstly, I self-published.
What does that mean? What does self-publish?
So self-published means that I didn't have a major publisher buy the book from me and then
then
distribute it that way. That way, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's great when you're published, and you're in all the bookstores as well as online. However, for me, I also knew there was a process to making that happen, and what I didn't want that I started chasing publishers and trying to sell them the concept of my book, the intention behind my book, and they perhaps not seeing that and telling me no and shutting me down And I didn't want to do that because I felt like the message was that important. I'm not changing this book for someone else. I don't need your approval. All I want is to share my story. And when all you want to share your story is sometimes the need to cut out all of that red tape is necessary.
Yeah.
And that's how I saw it.
Yeah.
So I self-published. I knew nothing about self-publishing, and everything that I know and everything that took me to the point of having that book physically, I learned as I went on.
Excellent.
Once I wrote it, it was, and I read.
Yeah.
I am a reader, so when I want to learn something, I will read.
Yeah.
And I will read, and I will read, and I will read until I grasp it the way I want to. And I did that. I set myself, to be fair. I was very disciplined, more disciplined than I ever knew I could be, to be fair. But there's something about when it's just your time. When it's just your time, you just do it. Because I've wanted to write this book before. I've sat down to write this book before. I've written a few lines and so on and so forth. But the way I brought it forth, it was like, not easy, but it was just flow.
It flowed because you was in the right space at the right time.
I was. And it, for every day I sat down to write, I really sat down to write. And some days it was heavy.
Yeah.
I had to write and put the book away. I couldn't write anymore even though I wanted to. But it was too emotional. I needed to step back. Or I wrote something that was so emotive that I need to take a step away and I need everyone not to talk to me for a moment. I just need some space. It was like that.
Going back into those feelings and stuff.
You don't just go back into the feelings, you go back to that actual place, to the point that I didn't realise I've been through so much. And so when I wrote my story, I saw myself, I was outside of myself looking in, and it was horrible. It was horrible, and I felt sorry for me.
No, I
was just grateful that I was.
But I'm glad
that I'm here.
Yeah.
Looking in.
But even though you went through that, but you must have felt a sense of pride. No, because you're looking into it now. I don't like to use the word back. I like to use forward. But you're forward into your previous self. But you're now in a place knowing that you came out of that.
Yeah.
So, although it felt horrible to think about it or to feel it again, you must. I mean, that joy, that you've conquered it and you're able to now be writing about it.
Definitely. To be where I am today is the ultimate blessing. Eternally grateful. I just can't even express my gratitude because I do know that my story could have gone so different.
Yeah.
So I do look at it as a milestone. I look at it as an achievement, not just a book, but literally surviving the experience.
Yeah.
But I'd say, some people, they study a lifetime to do the thing that they were born to do, whereas I feel like I just needed to survive. Because in surviving, I do what I was born to do.
Yeah.
And
you know what? That's a good note to end on. Motivation. Make sure you know what your motivations are.
Yeah.
Make sure you know what your intentions are. Know whether or not you're willing to go through and search for a publisher, or whether you want to self-publish like Yolanda did, and then feel good about yourself and make sure you feel good about the book and feel good about what you're doing after that.
Definitely.
So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It has been an absolute pleasure. I was so excited. I'm just going to come away from this on an absolute high. I'm really, really pleased.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Now that we've mentioned the book, I really want you to speak about anything coming up, what people should be looking out for, your mentoring, your brand itself.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't want to be forward, but you have to big up Disturbing the Peace because I've listened to it and I think it's brilliant. So over to you.
So I think the thing that's going to probably come next for us is going to be a follow-up to the launch. So when we did the launch, the book had just come out. People hadn't necessarily read it.
Completely read it.
Whereas now, people have read it or they're partially read it. So people have questions. So the follow-up event will allow people to take part in those conversations, Q&As with me and so on and so forth. And I just constantly want to give back and to allow myself to just give that little bit more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The things that people have come forth and asked me about since purchasing the book, I realised that there's more that I can give. Just in terms of the book, and that's my intention, to keep doing that. So I think within the next couple of months there'll be another event to follow up the book
I look
launch.
forward to it.
So yeah, and as for other things, I keep a lid on most things until it,
Of course, until it's
until
done.
the time. So just
Right,
stay tuned.
right,
But there
exactly.
will definitely be more books,
So
without a doubt.
you need to at I am Yolanda author.
Yep.
Right. Is there any other?
Yep.
things
The
you wanna-
Facebook page is I am Yolanda. The Instagram page, I am Yolanda author.
Yeah. And don't forget, A Journey of Hope is available on Amazon.
Worldwide.
Worldwide, exactly. Worldwide. So you can get that anytime, and it's really is worth a read. It's born from, obviously you're in the UK. It's born from the UK, but I'm sure it can benefit everybody.
Yeah.
So thank you so much again for coming in. Thank you for listening, and I think we should conclude.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. That was